Right, back to the story now. The KwaZulu-Natal provincial government faces renewed instability after the National Freedom Party pulled out of the Government of Provincial Unity. The infighting could severely affect service delivery across the province. We speak now to Asad Gaffar, who is the chairperson of the eThekwini Ratepayers protest movement, about the state of service delivery. Thank you so much, Asad, for your time and joining us this morning. So maybe perhaps let's just get the perspective of your movement with regards to the significance of the NFP now pulling out of the GPU.
Yeah, I mean, we monitoring this very closely, and there's been a build-up to this. I mean, you would recall there was a motion of no confidence that was put against the Premier. That obviously then failed, but then there's been pressure now on the NFP because their candidate was actually not supposed to vote in favor of the present government. She defied the orders of her party, and as a result, the motion failed. What we're now seeing is that her party has now recalled her and actually removed her from the party, which now creates this vacuum, and it's left to be seen what is going to happen, whether we're going to go to fresh elections or possibly a new candidate will come in and then vote with the MK party, and then as a result we will see a new government. So we're watching it very, very, very closely.
And in watching it that closely, how might this realignment affect many of those ratepayers of KwaZulu-Natal?
I don't think it only affects ratepayers. I think the bigger concern is if MK party had to come into power, what would the position of KZN be? And I think this is coming from the fact that when Mr. Zuma was incarcerated, which led to the instability and the riots in the province. So many people are associating it directly with Mr. Zuma in terms of that, the KZN riots. And then ultimately as well, what doesn't go well for MK party is that when the vote of no confidence meeting took place, and yes, we agree that the conduct of the speaker needs to be taken into account, because the way she conducted that entire meeting, was not procedurally correct. But ultimately, it ended up in chaos. And the chaos obviously was from MK party, and then they had to be physically removed from the meeting. Now, when you behave in this sort of manner, it doesn't go well, especially if you are going to be in a leadership position. And we're talking about leading the province. Now, if you want to lead the province, and you're behaving in this sort of a manner, it makes everyone concerned that if you don't get your way, then violence is the solution. And I think that is the concern.
Now, in their media briefing that's still taking place, the Acting General Secretary, Bheki Xaba, spoke about a number of issues with regards to why they are pulling out of the Government of Provincial Unity, and he says they want to uproot the corruption that exists within the province. He also spoke about the KZN province as well as the municipalities that are facing a collapse and that are worsening on a daily. But they've also gone on to say that they don't have any agreements with the MK party or the EFF. They are simply moving to the opposition benches and they are not looking to govern the province as it is currently. How do you think all of this impacts just on the efforts of service delivery within KZN?
Yeah, I mean, these are all fancy words, but the fact of the matter is they are now the kingmakers with just one seat. So it's either they're voting for the Government of National Unity or they're going to end up voting with MK party. The reality is that MK party did win the majority vote in the national elections or in the provincial elections. We can't run away from that fact. And it was only because of the coalition that they were able to keep the MK party out. So ultimately, the NFP will have to make a decision, either with the JNU or with MK party. What we can see, and behind the scenes, there's a move for NFP to actually vote and side with MK party. Now, it's left to be seen. I mean, it's all well and good to say that we want to end corruption and we want to fix the province. But when you're displaying that sort of leadership, how much of confidence do we as ordinary citizens have in a party that's going to take over this province, but this is the sort of leadership that they're presenting? It doesn't leave us very confident. The fact of the matter is, I mean, yes, the municipalities are collapsing, and whether it's going to be the ANC or whether it's going to be the MK party, the fact is that all of these parties, in fact, if you look at most of the members of the MK party, they're former ANC members. So how much of a change or positive change is left to be seen? We very much doubt that MK party will significantly end corruption, and take decisive action against individuals who are found to be corrupt or mismanaging funds. Again, we obviously, as a ratepayers protest movement, we're not keeping quiet. We're calling it out. We won't stop calling it out. We want to see change, and we're going to push very, very hard to ensure that those who take up these positions, especially in leadership positions, are held to account.
So, Asad, what would the solution then be? What would that change entail in order for us to see corruption rooted out of some of these provincial structures? I mean, as it is, the NFP in that briefing was accusing the DA of being entangled with some of the ANC corruption and saying that they too are now complicit to what's happening in that province. When you say as a movement you will stand and ensure that you hold people accountable, what does that change look like?
So for us as the protest movement, we've now taken a decision to enter into the space of challenging the next local government elections, because what we're seeing now is, in terms of the political leadership, there's a problem. People are taking decisions in favor of a party instead of taking decisions in terms of the people. And you'll always hear the slogan "people first." It's a common slogan amongst all political parties. But once they are in power, they're all for themselves. And what we are saying, so for eThekwini, we're not challenging the province for now, but for eThekwini, the next local government elections, we will be putting candidates forward to challenge for each of these wards, to ensure that we have our people there who will take care of the needs of the residents. We can't continue like this. I mean, 30 years later after democracy, and we're still talking about how to fix corruption and fruitless and wasteful expenditure at the expense of people. People don't have jobs, they don't have houses, infrastructure is collapsing. Here in eThekwini, there's about 9 wastewater treatment plants that are not working. Now, you have a city that's supposed to have over, I don't know how many, 20 or 21 wastewater treatment plants, and half of them are not even working. And the city is comfortable with that. And yet they still have the audacity to put money aside to build monuments and have fireworks displays and have a New Year party, but you're not focusing on the real needs of the people. And for us, this is a concern. Now, when we're talking about the province, and I hear where the comment that the DA is now complicit in a lot of these, or overlooking, if you want to put it that way, because that's ultimately what it is. It becomes a quid pro quo. We will give you this position, but don't question us on all of these other things. And that's the reality of a government of national unity. Now, we know for a fact that the DA has been given a few seats in the provincial legislature, and being in that coalition with the ANC, how do you then go and say, I want to call them out? Because if you call them out, they will remove you from your seat. So they are stuck, and that's the fact. And voters need to realize that a government of national unity, where the opposition and the government are in the same room, there will never be change. We will never be able to move forward. And opposition must remain an opposition. You cannot be an opposition and a government. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You speak of the movement looking to contest some of the wards in the eThekwini municipality. What role do you think that residents and communities themselves should be playing in order to push for improved service delivery?
Communities need to stand up. I mean, the fact that they, many people, if you go on the ground and you ask them, what is it that you want, and are you satisfied with the current state? And most of people will tell you, what is it that we can do? We just have to accept it and move along. And we say no. There's no need for you to accept it. I mean, eThekwini runs a budget of 90 billion rand, and that's more than sufficient to ensure that when it comes to service delivery, everything is taken care of. We should not be in a situation where infrastructure is failing. We should not be in a situation where we have raw sewage on our streets. I'm not even talking about the beaches. I'm talking about everyday living. Here, if you go in many of the townships, there's raw sewer flowing in the streets. Now, when we talk about this, and the reason why I want to maybe speak a little bit further about this, when you go and look at areas like say Kloof or Westville or Queensborough, etc., these communities won't accept it. If there's raw sewer on the street, they won't accept it. They'll protest. They'll write letters. They'll go on Facebook. They'll do all sorts of things to make a noise and get it sorted out. But when you go into the townships, when you go into Mulweni, when you go into Chesterville, when you go into Amlazi, those communities don't know what to do. And they kind of accept this and they keep quiet. And we are saying as a protest movement, what's good for Westville must be good for Mulweni. Why does the city not take that area into, or the issues in those areas as serious? And we've highlighted this so many times in the meeting, and I'm using this opportunity here to highlight this, because to see a school child crossing or tiptoeing over sewer, a street flowing with sewer to get into a transport, or even just to get across the road, is unacceptable.
It certainly is unacceptable. Asad, thank you so much for your time and giving us a reaction to that NFP pulling out of the Government of Provincial Unity within KZN, and also saying that them, as the eThekwini Ratepayers Association, would then be contesting some of those wards in eThekwini. That's Asad Gaffar, the chairperson of the eThekwini Ratepayers protest movement.